Hello, hello, and welcome to the Fast Track to Fearless with me, Tracy Forsyth. And today I am talking to Sasha Speed, who is a finance coach or a financial coach. So this is part of my series in the wonderful world of coaching and the different people who offer different specialisms. So welcome, Sasha.
Hello, Tracy. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. So listen, just for the benefit of everybody watching, what is a financial coach and how does it differ from an independent financial advisor or an accountant?
Yeah, that's a great place to start, actually, because a lot of people confuse a financial coach with an independent financial advisor, but there are some really big differences. If I start with an independent financial advisor, this role, this function is probably the person to whom most people get financial advice nowadays. And a financial advisor, a good financial advisor, will meet you, will listen to you, will ask you lots of questions about your financial setup. They call this a fact find. And then once they've gone through this with you, they'll think about your goals and where you're hoping to get to. And their remit really is to, in my opinion, sell you a financial product which meets the needs which they have identified as a result of that fact find. Mm-hmm. So their DNA is kind of selling you financial product solutions. And you get some really great IFAs. And you get perhaps another part of the market whereby perhaps the IFA is more hungry for the product sale than they are in sort of sitting back and listening to you, which in my opinion is where financial coaches come in. IFAs, independent financial advisors, are usually remunerated by commission. Mm-hmm. And so if you are being a little bit cynical about it, you might think that that person is affording their life, paying their mortgage by selling successfully financial products to people. Yeah. And for a lot of people who've been in the financial services industry, they might feel that that kind of loses some of the objectivity that perhaps a financial advisor should have. Mm-hmm. And perhaps in the past, there was someone like a friendly bank manager or that kind of role who might share the responsibility with the IFA. And that kind of role has diminished, hasn't it? We kind of look to banks much more as online presence and an online function.
Yeah.
Financial coaches have kind of come into the gap to do a bit more understanding you before we arrive at the financial solution. And quite often financial coaches will take you further back. They'll ask you about your earliest recollections of money. They'll ask you about that voice you hear in your head when you are thinking about finances. And in my opinion, it's useful perhaps to meet with a financial coach when you're feeling stuck around money as a precursor to meeting with an independent financial advisor, because in my experience, the groundwork that you do with a financial coach just sets you up beautifully to have that conversation with your IFA or an IFA who's been recommended to you, because you can then go into that dialogue much more confident about what your needs are, where you're coming from, the sort of life that you're envisaging for yourself. And so when the IFA is throwing out solutions at you, in my opinion, you're in a much better place to think, yeah, that's just what I want, or actually, no, I don't think that's what I want. And I feel confident enough now to challenge some of those recommendations. So in an ideal world, I think the financial coach would go before the financial advisor, and quite often can work in tandem with the financial advisor going forwards. But it's that groundwork that you do before, which is kind of where the financial coach comes in. And I think that's really useful.
Yeah, brilliant. And what about an accountant then? How does that? So you've got the independent financial advisor who's there to give you the products, just to kind of like the vehicles to what you're wanting. There's you, the financial coach, yeah, and then the accountant. Where does that come in?
So accountants can be absolutely invaluable. They're a really great person to have in your team. And an accountant's DNA is all about the tax and how you're managing your financial affairs within the context of the tax regime. So whether you're an employee, and your PAYE, which is less in need of an accountant because quite a lot of that work might be being done by your employer. But you might have a side hustle, or you might be someone who's just gone freelance, or you might be someone who owns their own company and has a limited company. Then your accountant is the person who you should be talking to say, am I doing everything correctly as far as HMRC are concerned?
Mm-hmm.
And I've got an idea about how I might do this, but actually, accountant, are there cleverer ways in which I could be managing my tax affairs? And for most people, the answer is yes, because there are probably different scenarios, and you could choose 1, 2, or 3. And equal amongst those options might be the idea that there is efficiency in those 3 scenarios, but there's probably a better version for you. And you can explore these ideas by talking to an accountant. And a really good example of that, Tracy, might be something like a company car. And how do I incorporate a company car tax efficiently into what I am doing? There are different versions of this dialogue. I know this is something perhaps that you've been thoughtful about recently. And it's working with your accountant to understand the most tax efficient way to do things. And so opportunity for savings and more money in your bank account if you're doing things efficiently.
Yeah, that's right. I found out the hard way that actually the difference in cars can cost you thousands in personal tax. Yeah, absolutely.
It's really interesting. Yeah, how much variance there can be. Yeah.
Yes, and then in terms of, because I have both, I'm a solopreneur, so I have a limited company, so I have an accountant, and then I had an independent financial advisor for pensions and things like that. And I guess that's why I came to you, because between the two, I was giving, I felt very ignorant about it all, to be honest. And so that's definitely, I just wanted to, I come from a creative background, and as such, I just always thought I don't understand the finances, etc., etc. So I definitely wanted to be more confident around what was going on and what the options were. I know that that's how I came to you. But just before we go into what financial coaching actually looks like, tell me a little bit about you. What brought you to this, and what was it that you realized there was a need for?
Yeah, thank you. So I think I, like lots of other financial coaches, have had a life in financial services. And amongst the financial coaches I know, it's usually that we came to a realization that we could be doing things in a way that helped people more than the employers that we were working for. So I come from a banking and finance background. And although my job was to take care of people and their finances, I was ultimately remunerated by, again, selling products to people. That was what the bank wanted me to do. And a lot of people in financial services are very genuine about wanting to help people with financial information and achieve the right outcomes for them. But it seemed that when you're working for someone else's mandate, perhaps that could get a bit twisted. So I think by the time, I might also say quite a lot of the financial coaches I know are of a certain level of maturity. And so maybe you just get to the stage of thinking, I'm confident enough to do this better. I'm confident enough now to do this on my terms and in a way that aligns with my own values. So I think a lot of people who are financial coaches are people who genuinely want to help. And instead of selling on a commission basis, most financial coaches charge by the hour. And it's a way of utilizing, 25, 30 years worth of financial background to continue to do something productive and worthwhile and help people perhaps more on my terms in a way that I think helps people, rather than from that sort of corporate background where ultimately profit is the motive. So I came from that background, and along the way, I had children, I married and then got divorced. I have elderly parents. There have been various life events that have been thrown up in my life where I thought, well, I can cope okay with this because I have this financial awareness. But amongst my friends who are going through similar life experiences, people are coming to me and saying, can you help me with this? Or I'm a bit stuck on that. And I was then able to use my own life experience as well as my financial experience, hopefully to help other people arrive at better financial outcomes and a better financial understanding.
Yeah, lovely. It's like using your financial expertise along with your life experience
Yeah.
to support and help others
Yeah.
through, yeah, but times in their life. Yeah, brilliant. I love it. I
Yeah.
think a lot of kind of coaches or speciality coaches or coaches that have had a big career in a particular industry find so much that they get so much meaningful impact out of actually then using their experience and expertise in a way that serves others. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And interestingly, Tracy, you mentioned coming from a creative background. A lot of the clients who I've looked after in my life also come from a creative background, and I think perhaps as a group of people, they are less interested in numbers. You know, they're much
Yes.
more interested in being creative. And so already I had kind of honed an expertise in trying to explain finances to people who were quite reluctant to engage with finance in the first place. And I think that was probably a really good experience.
Yeah, definitely. Or it's making it understandable, isn't it? It's telling the story behind the finances. I think that's definitely what
Yeah.
helped. I would certainly what helped me. So I was just going to share this document here that you had provided. Do you want to just talk us through this in terms of like what's the link between, I guess, finances and coaching? How does it manifest?
Yeah, exactly. So I think this diagram, this Venn diagram, is quite useful to kind of show the breadth of what a financial coach can cover. And finance is just one of those areas where people can get stuck. And I think the world of coaching exists to help people figure out how they are stuck and move forwards from there with the support of a coach.
Yeah.
And so if you look at this diagram here, then the three broader outside circles are that because financial coaches have quite often come from a financial background themselves, that sort of bunch of bullet points and a guide is relevant to that tying into that experience, if you like.
Yes.
A key thing within financial coaching is that financial coaches can only offer generic advice, which is a kind of label put on us by the industry, by the FCA, where we can't offer specific product advice. We can only offer generic guidance, if you like.
Yeah.
But we're sharing expertise and we're guiding people through the world of finance. Yes. And then if you look at the right-hand side, mentor, that's much more to do with perhaps providing inspiration. And, you know, one of the bullet points there is offering support and encouragement. But being conscious that this is the individual doing it for themselves. We're not telling someone what to do, which is part of that mentoring arrangement, that mentoring structure. And then coaching, if we think, you know, Tracy, you're a fantastic life coach, but I think the world of coaching, you know, we got used to it first probably within the world of PT, didn't we? And the personal trainer and sort of our physical health. Well, financial coaches are tying in much more into that mental health, that we talk a lot about financial well-being. And so the idea of finances and coaching is not to overlook that part of our lives which is rooted in finance, which can cause huge anxiety.
Yeah.
And yet we're not really taught about it at school. We're not kind of given lessons in basic financial management. So most people are kind of struggling even from the off, from leaving school, as to try and fathom out their finances. And some people have had families who have helped navigate, steer, guide, all of those sorts of things. But lots of people just don't have that. Or perhaps they might have that from a parent or a background which sort of sits within a certain context, maybe a family who have been struggling within a financial context, or a family where one of the parents was actually rogue, and that has had an influence on those kids as they've been growing up. So I think there's a fantastic opportunity for people to engage with coaches financially just as much as there are in terms of physical health or life coaching or in these other areas where coaches are successful.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, finance is such a can be such a emotional thing, can't it? Like you mentioned, anxiety, and I think often when it can be a taboo subject as well. And so I just think it's a hotbed. I mean, I think most, when you think about arguments at the home, etc., etc., I'm sure finances must be, well, throughout time,
Yes.
it has been a hot topic. So
Yes.
having somebody, a confidential sounding board to talk to, or to talk about these matters with, I think is incredibly valuable. So when you think about the kind of people that you work with, how do the issues range? What are the kind of, if somebody's watching this and thinking, I'm thinking I might need a financial coach, like what are the kind of issues that you deal with and how do you help?
Yeah. So quite often someone might get in touch because they've arrived at a certain crossroads, and they're trundling along, everything was fine, and now here we are at a crossroads and something is changing. So that change quite often prompts someone to get in touch, and the change might be, I've been an employee and now I want to go freelance, and I don't know if I can afford to do that. What might that look like?
Yeah.
Or it might be connected to our personal life in terms of perhaps I'm with the wrong partner, and yes, I'm financially interdependent with that partner. So can I afford to separate, or can I afford to divorce? That might be another scenario.
Yeah.
Or perhaps there might have been a windfall of some nature, which might be a larger than expected bonus, or it might be inheritance, or even winning the lottery, or something like that, where someone has just realized that I'm okay at this level, I know how to manage my finances at this level, but now there is more in the pot that's making me feel uneasy with the responsibility of that, and therefore it's useful to connect with someone to talk to and run ideas past. Or it might just be someone who realized they didn't have that input at home and have perhaps got to their early 20s and working their way through life thinking, I just don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I don't know who to talk to about it.
I don't think you just have to be in your early 20s for that. I think it could be 30s, 40s, 50s, you name it. Yeah. I just don't know what I'm doing. Yes.
Yeah. We all might come at that realization at different times, mightn't we? But that thing that you and I were just saying, that we're not taught about money in schools, and also how it remains such a taboo, Tracy. I was involved in talking to a women's group about finance, and they admitted they'd rather talk about sex than talk about finance.
Wow. Yeah. And that's saying something, isn't it? Yeah.
Isn't it? Isn't it?
I don't know what it is, whether there's shame or whether there's it's something that's so private. I mean, it used to be that, you would never tell anybody your salary. You'd never tell anybody who you voted for. It was just, it fell into that category, didn't it? And yet it's like something that, I mean, we all have to, well, most of us have to think about putting a roof over our heads and food on the table. And it's such a massive part of our life, isn't it? But so it's crazy. I find it's crazy that we're not more educated about it. And I guess the education falls to ourselves. But certainly in my day, it was very much everybody should get a credit card because it's like kind of free money until you have to pay it back. But it's the taking out of big mortgages. I mean, I know it's very different for the younger generation with home buying, etc. But we do seem to, that we go into these massive, massive things without really understanding it. So
yeah. So I think the summary or the conclusion of that would be, it could be a big life event, or it could just be, I'm stuck. And
I think that's the thing. The common thing about coaching, whether it's any kind of coaching, it's normally people come when they've hit an obstacle or a crossroads, or they're they are here and they want to get here and they don't know how, or they might not even know what this is. They might need to unpack what this is, and then they might need to kind of navigate obstacles in between. And I think what's brilliant about financial coaching is it's really like a confidential, safe space that you could admit your ignorance, and no question is too stupid, and you gain that confidence. So when you think about like coaching being that kind of transformation or that journey, what kind of transformations do you see, or do you hope for, or are people wanting?
So some fantastic transformations, and I'm sure you've experienced this as a life coach as well, Tracy, that what a rewarding thing to be encouraging someone to move forwards and stand on their own 2 feet. And I think there's a phrase in coaching, isn't there, to kind of start living their full potential. And people moving on in their life when they really thought they were stuck. So I've talked to people who have been perhaps on the cusp of separation or divorce, and in a deeply unhappy situation, and have been able to hold their hand financially to help them navigate their way through that. When there's a lot of pain around that, it's kind of being able to help shine a light at the end of the tunnel. So that's been nice. But then also, I was working with a girl in her 20s at the end of last year, and her family label was that in the family, she was the one who's always shit with money. She was the one who always had big credit card bills, and she was ditzy. And this was the kind of label that she'd stuck on her forehead and was taking through life. So she started by saying, I want to be better, money. I don't want to be that person. And when she and I pulled back the layers of this, we kind of realized that she wasn't ditzy. She wasn't the one that was bad with money. She was super smart and great at managing her money. But it was just the label that her family had put on her, which was utterly fictitious when she and I sat down and looked at it. But it took an objective third party to help her put the spotlight on that, for her to have the realization that actually I'm fine. I am just doing fine. And that was just a lovely transformation that almost happened in one session. Which I could just see she left the session with like a different person.
The light bulb went off, and you lifted a burden from her shoulders.
I'm the ditzy one. I'm the one who keeps messing up my phone. No, she wasn't at all. So these things are lovely. And so that was a girl in her 20s. And at the same time, I'm chatting to a woman in her 70s who is kind of thinking, should I have done things differently? I'm kind of hoarding this. Is that the right thing to do? And has kind of locked herself into a cave, something like that, when she's still got many years left to live. But she's kind of got locked into this idea of, I should shut down now and I should save and live like
kind of scarcity mindset or something.
So in that instance, I was almost giving her permission to spend her own money, which, again, quite an extraordinary situation, but one which is quite common.
So it's really, really making changes to the mindset. And I guess it's like, I mean, a lot of what you've spoken about there are kind of like what we would call like limiting beliefs, aren't they? Or kind of narratives. It's like, kind of false narratives. So showing different ways. I mean, how long does it take? Like, so if somebody worked with you, I know you said you work in one-off sessions, or one at a time, rather than some coaches do like packages, etc. But how long does, I mean, maybe this is how long is a piece of string, but how long does it take financial coaching?
So you're right. If someone were to look across the marketplace, there are coaches who sell blocks of sessions. And quite a lot of those coaches do that because they have sort of planned their own journey that they will take the client through, which I'm sure works out and is really good. I think I prefer the idea of less structure. I prefer the idea of seeing where the conversation takes us.
Yes.
And I have helped someone just in one session, and at the other end of the piece of string is someone who I probably touch base with every other month and have been my client for 5 years, you know, and they know where I am, and they come back as and when they feel they need a bit of a boost, or to just kind of rejig and get themselves back on track. So it is how long is a piece of string, but if I was looking at an average, I would say it was probably between 2 and 6 sessions, probably does the trick for most people.
Yes. Yeah, because also having worked with you, I think we've done about 5, 6 sessions or something, but you know, in between you gave me really good homework to do, you know, information gathering about my finances, and helping me put them into order and make sense of them and all that kind of thing, which made a massive difference to my own happiness and confidence around money. So it's like, what is the work that needs to be done, and you're meeting people where they're at, which is what good coaches do, meet the client where they're at.
And brilliant that you should say that, Tracy, because actually it's you that's doing the work on yourself, isn't it? If we kind of think back to that image of the Venn diagram, I'm the person with the expertise, but actually the nature of coaching is for you to do that work on yourself rather than me telling you what to do.
Yes. Well, you did a bit, right? I mean, but you do tell, you know, you said, right, you know, you got to work out your assets and liabilities, and you did really helpfully give me like Excel spreadsheets to kind of like guide me into what to do. But it was me going to populate that rather than you doing the work, and that made me understand it more.
Yes.
Doing it myself.
Yeah, which I think is important. And I think quite a lot of feedback I get from people who've sat down in front of an IFA is that they used jargon I didn't understand. They spoke at me. I've walked out with a product solution that I don't understand, and yet I felt so kind of beaten up and so kind of intimidated by the language that I didn't challenge or question any of that, and I don't actually even know what I've just signed up for. You know, that can happen, and so it's important that the individual does the work. That's part of
to understand what they're signing, and not just have blind faith. Although I'm sure, I mean, you know, I really like the IFAs that I've worked with, and I love my accountant, etc. But I am probably guilty of, like, you know, going, I'm sure that's fine, yes, whatever, and then moving on. And so, like, listen, so in terms of like if people are considering like financial coaching, are there any kind of like tips, general advice, you know, what top 3 tips or golden rules might you have to get people on their way to being fearless about their finances?
Top 3 tips, that's a lovely one. So I think stop prevaricating, you know. It's not going away. We're touched by finance every single day of our lives, and so, you know, the time is now. The time is already, because it will just carry on. You know, you're just in that situation, and nothing is going to change. Apart from your anxiety or your coping strategies will get stronger and stronger. So, you know, kind of seize the day, get your head out of the sand. Let's do something about it. I think also the idea that we approach this holistically. So as you mentioned before, it's not just about the money. It's about emotions. It's about what happened to us in childhood. It's about my values. Where am I going in life? What's important to me? And so I think you have to be prepared to maybe go backwards before you go forwards. Maybe think about those voices in your head and where they came from. We quite often play a game in financial coaching, which is this game, If Money Came to Tea. And the game is intended to encourage someone to visualize what money looks like to them, and perhaps money in a, the personification of money to that person, to begin understanding what money actually is to them.
That's a nice one. I don't know what this says about me, but I'm suddenly thinking of the honey monster of the money. Yeah, but I'm going to take that one away and think about it. Yeah.
I think that sounds quite bountiful. I like that.
Fat, I like that. Yes.
So do the work. Let's think about it holistically. We're not just looking for quick fixes and quick solutions. If we were, we might just go to the online supermarket, or I was going to say IFA, but I don't mean that, because so many IFAs are brilliant and really put the time in as well. But yes, it's a bigger picture. And probably the last thing is, let's break that taboo. Let's, what harm saying to your girlfriend, I'm struggling with this. How do you navigate that? What's your experience been? What's your relationship like with your money? We all make assumptions about other people, don't we? And I think, as you say, there's a lot of shame, a lot of stigma around money, and we get caught up into things which might not work for us, but yet we're too frightened, we're too ashamed to say, I can't afford it, or can we just do something different with that? So really try hard to talk to your friends about money, and let's try and work on breaking down this taboo.
Yeah. Beautiful. Brilliant. So Sasha, if people are interested, how should they get in touch with you? What's your process?
So the easiest way is just to email me directly, probably sasha@sashaspeed.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. I've got a website, which is www.sashaspeed.com. So I should crop up on a Google search quite easily. And whether it's me or whether it's someone else, Tracy, I think if someone's curious, there are quite a lot of people in this space now, and you need to work with the right person, don't you? And if you're thinking about therapy or these other things, it might be that you don't find the right person first. So there are a few of us now, and maybe shop around and find the person who feels like a good fit with you.
Yes. Yeah. That all important chemistry. Chemistry. It's something. Well, speaking personally, I think I've loved working with you. You're brilliant. So I'm sure I would have no hesitation in recommending you. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm gonna stop the recording now. And yes, anybody, sashaspeed.com. That's such a great name. You're not going to forget that, are you?